Check, check, check.
Say something into it.
Okay, this is a test. Let's start.
Yeah.
So all of our water is supplied by gravity, but it all starts down at the stream. That's from a tank that fills by gravity from the stream and then overflows back to the stream. So the tank is always full. And then there are two lines that go from there up to the gravity tanks. One is the house tank, which supplies the domestic water for drinking and shower. And the other is the pair of ag tanks. So when I first moved here, there was one 2,500 gallon ag tank and it was here. I moved it uphill, I don't know, about 20 feet, giving us just that much more pressure, and added a second tank later. And I used valves to control the flow between them so that they work together in spite of being at different heights. This is one of the lines coming from that ag tank. There are two. One of them branches off and goes to the yard above the cabin, supplies the spigots in the driveway. The line wraps around the house and comes back to the kitchen garden, what we call a kitchen garden below the greenhouse. And all that water is supplied by these ag tanks. So now that line is buried and it comes down right here. And then right about this point, it branches off and there's a terminal. And lift the lid on that thing. And there is a water timer in there. And you'll see those water timers everywhere. If all goes well, it's hands off on those and they will turn on and off at the correct intervals to supply water to the gardens.
This whole garden?
So yeah, so there's this timer for this bed here. There is this timer for these plants right here. And then there's this timer for all the beds going downhill that way. These are the hoses from which you supply auxiliary water, right? So these ball valves are really nice because it's very fast to turn them on and off and it's easy to do. Emitters, the way they work is that the water comes out here and then when it comes into the emitter, there are these channels on this post that you insert this spaghetti line onto that cause water to shoot out in four directions. So when it's stuck in the ground like that, it forms a kind of a halo spray. And you'll start to see water coming out of here. And there we are. It gets more dramatic than that.
Cool.
There you go. So I use a mix of these perforated lines and the unperforated lines that you connect to spaghetti tubing.
That is the way to water.
It is a great way to water. I haven't found anything I like better. But in order to supply water by gravity, you first have to pump it uphill. So let's start by going up to the ag tanks. So to measure the tank, it's simple. You just stick a marked bamboo stick in there and drop it to the bottom and then lift it out and look where the water line is. Yeah. So now we're going to the other tank to take a measurement. Same thing, calibrated stick. So this is as low as it gets.
Wow.
This is, I believe that's 7 inches. Yeah. Let's go down and start the pumping. So, pump tank.
Pump tank.
It fills from an intake that's in the stream, which is an inverted 5-gallon bucket with a piece of 1-inch poly line inserted into the side so the water flows to this point, which is downstream just enough that it flows by gravity into this tank. Turn it on. This is the line supplying water to the ag system right here. And this is where you can test it. And if for some reason they're both closed, it'll shoot straight up in the air right here. We're not going to do that. Now the tank should be filling, and we're going to go find out.
All right.
From here, you could just hear water entering the tank, but let's go look. The sound of tank filling. That's as much as you need to know. Again, you can hear that it's filling. we've already pumped. There's yet a third trip to the ag tanks that's necessary when you're pumping to the ag tanks. The third trip is to measure the final levels on both tanks. The continuing saga of the ag water supply. Hit the bottom, bring it back up, and look at what you've got, and that is 62.5 inches, which is pretty close to full. So this didn't come up nearly as much. This is 14.9 inches. Unless I want to pump from the pond,
Yeah, which why do it?
which I'm avoiding because I like to keep the pond full.
Yeah,
Yeah, got it.
totally.
Okay.
Cool.
This is the original fire hydrant for the land. It's too small to be regulation. It's got its own hose, and if I were here putting out a fire, I would use it, no problem. It puts out a lot of water.
Whoa.
So leave that alone unless you have a fire, but it's kind of neat that it's here and it still works.
Yeah. Is it well or is it?
No, this is connected to
It's
the ag
connected
tanks.
to the. Oh, okay. It's all
Yeah,
that
so
same.
that's the first stop for the water coming down the hill, and then the line continues around the
Got it.
yard to
Okay.
the other spigots and then back to the kitchen garden. So this aerator probably was always necessary, but it definitely became necessary when the pond began to eutrophy, meaning that it was going anaerobic and was turning into a meadow from the buildup of muck underneath. And so what I had to do was skim off all of the Azala floating aquatic fern that was on here and then keep the aerator going. It's just a little compressor. The timing of this is all controlled under the house by the charge controller. So when it's plugged in, it will turn on and off automatically with the sun, or I should say with the battery voltage, which is governed by how much power is coming in, which is the sun. What it's doing is it's turning over the water. So the water column is turning over, it's not stratifying. The tendency for a pond that doesn't have flow is for there to be a thermal stratification, and that suppresses the circulation of water. And this disrupts that. And that's important if you want to have the oxygen reach the bottom. If you get stratification, then dissolved air doesn't make it all the way to the bottom, the muck builds up, you advance eutrophication, etc.
Are there any fish in this pond?
Not that I know of, but the interesting thing is that when I drained it, as the water level came down, I go, oh, there's fish in here. I looked at them, they look like perch, but there's only one way they could have gotten here, which is fish eggs that just got accidentally picked up by ducks on their feathers and moved into the pond.
Wow. Cool. How often are you going out on the boat?
Oh, any old time. I was out on it the other day.
Nice.
Yeah.
Just having a row.
Yeah, it's good to have access to the surface of the pond for any old reason you might
True.
want.
True. Beautiful. And then watch the bubbles come back.
Yep.